Thank you all very much for being here this afternoon. I had no idea how many people to expect. I'm just thrilled to see you all here on this Sunday afternoon in May, which is such a busy time of year for everybody. It seems that every time of year is busy anymore for everybody. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to take a little bit of time out to appreciate some beautiful music and to celebrate my piano renaissance, as it were. So people that came in early were you a music major? And I said no. And I majored in German and history. And I just kept taking piano lessons from about third grade on through high school. And then I took piano all through college with Dr. Mary Helen Schmidt. And I gave half recitals at my sophomore year and my senior year in college. And so that would have been, the senior year would have been 1988. So if you think about that, it is 34 years, or even more, 36 years since I have actually played in front of a crowd like this. And so if you're looking for perfection, you have not come to the right place. But I'm hoping that you can appreciate the love that I have for music, and that's part of why I wanted to do this, because I thought, why would I want to resurrect and try to challenge myself to learn pieces that I had played in the past and some new ones if I wasn't willing to share that with other people. And so thank you again for being here today. So the story of the resurgence of piano actually comes with that piece by Pachelbel, because my nephew, Corey Holeen, lives in Olympia, Washington, is unable to be here today, obviously. It's a pretty long distance from here, but he called me about a year and a half ago, or almost 2 years ago at this point, and said, would you play the piano at our wedding? And I said, I'm thrilled you even remember I played the piano, but do you know how long it's been since I've played? And he said, well, think about it. So I went home and talked to David Peters, and I said, my nephews asked me to play, and I said, we don't have a piano at home, what am I going to do? And he said, well, St. Peter's has a piano. There's one in the choir room at church. So I came down and asked Father John and Father David, can I practice here? Of course, they said yes. And that was sort of the beginning of Pachelbel. And there's about 1 million different versions of that song. And so I picked one that I thought sounded nice. And I started practicing it. I thought, what am I doing? This is way out of my control, way out of my league. I can't do this. And so I had 9 months to practice. The wedding was last September in Olympia, Washington. And of course, I had never played on an amp before. And so that shook me. And I didn't play it even as well as I just did a few minutes ago. So, Corey, I'm sorry for the recording of your video, but that sparked my interest in seeing if I could play some other things that I used to play. And so I remember talking with Wanda, our organist, and we were talking about different things, and I was looking at Bach, because I'll be right Bach, right, as Alvin Schwarzenegger says, I'll be Bach. And so I started looking through my boxes of music, and I was pulling out these Bach pieces, and I was like, oh my God, I can't play this. This is just I used to play this? Are you kidding me? And so I was talking with Wanda one day, and we were talking back and forth, and she said, you know, when the pandemic first broke out, I started to play the inventions again, and I found the inventions very satisfying. And so that got me to thinking, well, maybe I can find this little book called 2- and 3-Part Inventions by J.S. Bach. And really what that means, a 2-part invention means that there's 2 voices, and a 3-part invention means that there's 3 voices. Well, you're not going to hear any 3-part inventions today, but you are going to hear 3 2-part inventions, and don't get scared if you are not familiar with this music, because Bach's inventions are very short. So each piece is less than 2 minutes long, and so you won't have to, if you don't like one, don't worry, it'll be over soon. And so, but I picked a couple, and one of them, when I go back and look through this music that I played in college and I see Dr. Schmidt's handwriting on these pages, it's like she comes back to life. And I can remember sitting in her studio and practicing and her assigning things and all the notes and everything. She unfortunately passed away 7 years ago, but she's still alive, very much so in these. And so with the two-part inventions, what you'll hear is you'll hear two melodies, but then Bach does wonderful things with those two melodies. He uses something called counterpoint. And what counterpoint means is you're using two different melodies and you invert them and you do different things with them and you move them into different keys as you're working. So in the first one I'm going to play, the Bach Invention 4 in D minor, actually the first 6 measures have the same main theme 3 times. So that goes in the right hand, then the left hand, then the right hand. They're just answering one another like this. And then from there, it goes into variations on that basic theme. And then when you get towards the end, that theme comes back, so you'll hear that again. The second one I'm going to play is one that is new to me because the number 4 and the number 14 number 8 that I'm playing are kind of note-y, as I like to say. There's lots of notes on them. They go really fast. I wanted to find one. This one has a lot of notes too, but it's not quite as fast as the other two. And this is invention number 14 in F major. And so it carries this theme throughout. You'll hear this over and over again. It goes. So you'll hear that going in the left hand, in the right hand. You'll hear them separate. You'll hear them together. And then finally, the hands play in thirds together. So they come together, and then they play in a round towards the end. So it feels like the piece is going faster and faster, but it's not. It's just the way the music is written. And Bach is a master of that. And then finally, the invention in F major is invention number 8. It is probably one of the more commonly known inventions. And I'm not going to allude anything about that one because it's pretty self-explanatory when you hear it. And so I hope you enjoy these 3 short inventions by Bach. So the first one is invention number 4 in D minor. The second one is invention number 14. And then the third one is invention number 8 in F major. And so if you would, please wait until, if you feel like you want to applaud, please wait until after the third one. So they kind of go together as a set to me. So thank you and enjoy a little Bach. And so really Bach wrote all those inventions as like practice pieces for students to practice things like trills and different things like that. But I find them, as Wanda said, very satisfying to play. And thank you, Wanda, for reawakening me through to that. So we're exiting the Baroque era, and now we're moving more into the classical period. And I decided as I put the program together, I wanted to hit all the major periods. And so the next period is the classical period, and so that includes works like Mozart and and of course one of the major composers of this time is also Beethoven. And so what you're going to hear next is the longest piece I'm playing today. It's the Beethoven Sonata No. 1 in F minor. It has 4 movements to it, and so this is the first of 32 sonatas that Beethoven wrote. So when you think about the volume of pieces that these composers wrote, I mean, Bach just wrote thousands and thousands of pieces, and Beethoven wrote 9 symphonies and 32 piano sonatas, and it's just mind-boggling when you think about how prolific and how much these people were able to create. It's really awesome. It's awe-inspiring to me to think that someone in their mind has the ability to do that. And so I hope that you enjoy the sonata in F minor. It has 4 movements, as you can see by your program. The first movement starts with what's called a Mannheim rocket chord. So you go up. And then at the very end of the work, about 20 minutes later, we go, in the 4th movement, we go down. So we go. So at the beginning of the sonata, you go up, and at the beginning, we're going down. And so you'll be able to recognize that. The first movement is very pleasing to listen to. The second movement is often quoted as one of the most beautiful pieces that Beethoven wrote. It's included often in like the 12 favorite works from the movements from the piano sonata. It's slow and it's really beautiful, and I hope you enjoy it. And that is followed by a minuet, so it's more of a dance. So this follows a true sonata allegro form with a fast movement, a slow movement, a minuet, or a dance of some kind. Oftentimes there would be maybe a gavotte or something like that. And then at the end you have a fast movement again. And this one is written and said to be prestissimo, and you're not going to hear prestissimo today. You're going to hear maybe a presto. Maybe. It's not going to be a prestissimo. I've listened to many recordings of this, and that's one of the really cool things from when I studied piano back in college in 1988, up through 1988. I mean, we didn't have access. You can go on YouTube and hear version after version after version after version of these and tutorials and all kinds of stuff. It just really opened up my world. And sort of to bring back my big gap of not playing, I graduated from college in 1988, and then the next year I lived in Germany in a small village, and I was very active with my piano that year. In fact, I worked with the school orchestra and did several things that year as well. But then once I moved back and started graduate school at the University of Iowa, I just let it go. I didn't have access to a piano anymore, and then my career got busy, and I just got away from it. And so this sonata is something that I played in my senior recital back in 1988. It was a half recital with one of my good friends, Beth. She played the French horn, and so she did half and I did half. And you're going to hear both of the works that I played for that half recital. And so the first one is this Beethoven Sonata No. 1 in F minor. And Beethoven dedicated this to Joseph Haydn, who was his teacher. He dedicated the first 3 piano sonatas to Haydn, but he's also reported to have said, "I learned nothing from him." So clearly Beethoven had an attitude for a long time. So in any case, I hope you enjoy. Again, it's about 20 minutes. If you're unfamiliar with it, the first movement's about 4 to 5 minutes. The second movement's the longest, but it's the most beautiful to me. The minuet is somewhat shorter, and then the last movement's about 6 or 7 minutes. Okay, and again, you just hold your applause till the end, and I hope you enjoy a little Ludwig this afternoon. I ain't gonna lie, I'm glad that's over. And it wasn't perfect, but I'm pleased. It went pretty well. I was going to say, we have many visitors here today who are not members of St. Peter's congregation, and so on behalf of the congregation here at St. Peter's, which has become David and my spiritual home here in Rome, I'd just like to extend a welcome to all of you who are visiting, and we hope you feel welcome here at our church. I love the nave. I think the stained glass is absolutely beautiful. And in case you're interested, the church, this building began construction in 1892, so that gives you an idea about the age of the edifice here. So with that, I don't know how well you know classical music, but to me, when I listen to the fourth movement of that, I'm hearing parts of what's going to happen later in Beethoven's career when he really branches from the classical to the romantic period. And Beethoven is the classic composer that started very much in the classical scheme and moved into the romantic era and was the bridge to the romantic movement that was to come. And I also, while talking about St. Peter's, I did want to mention also that I just got the idea as I was preparing for this that one of the things that this church offers for its youth is to take a pilgrimage every other or every third year. Most of the students are sophomores, juniors, or seniors in high school. The last trip they took was to France. They went to Normandy and then they went to Paris, and that was their trip. But the students are going to be going on a pilgrimage in 2025, so a year from now, basically. And this time they're going to walk in the footsteps of St. Francis of Assisi. So they are going to Italy and going to be on pilgrimage, which means, they're not going to have access to cell phones and those kinds of things. It's very much a spiritual journey for these young people. And so I thought, you certainly don't feel like you have to give or donate, but if you would like to donate at the end of the concert or even next week, you could certainly send something to St. Peter's Episcopal at 101 East 4th Avenue in honor of the recital. That would be very much appreciated. Or there's that stand up there as you go up towards the altar that you could feel free to drop something in. You don't need $1 is fine, $5, whatever your heart tells you. But mostly, I want you to just be here to enjoy. And I'm so glad, again, that so many of you are here this afternoon. So I needed to give my fingers a little break after that one. So that's why I'm talking a little more this time. So we're moving into the romantic period now, and I can't believe there's only 2 more composers to go. I felt like all these hours and hours of practice, and I can feel it flitting away so quickly. But Chopin is the next composer we're going to look at, and Frédéric Chopin lived a very short and tragic life. He only lived to be 39 years old. He was born in 1810 and died of complications from tuberculosis in 1850 in Paris. And of course, Chopin was born in Warsaw, or out near Warsaw, Poland. And so Poland obviously claims Chopin as their own, as they should. And I remember I was fortunate enough, speaking of pilgrimages, when I was after my freshman year in college, I played the French horn as well, and our brass choir took a pilgrimage tour to Europe, and we were in Germany, but we also got to spend 10 days in East Germany, Poland, the Czechoslovakia, as it was known then, and then back into Germany, and we finished up in Holland and in Great Britain. So it was a really a fantastic trip for someone who's 19, 20 years old and is interested in history and interested in languages. But Chopin always has a special place in my mind, because I remember being in Poland in 1985, and remember it was still communist then. And it was at the beginning of the Solidarity movement, and Lech Walesa was just becoming well known at the shipyards in Danzig, and Gdansk is the Polish name of the German name is Danzig. And I remember feeling back at that time that if anyone was going to break free of communism and live freely, it would be the Poles. I remember seeing the children, I remember seeing the people. The Polish people are very special. And I remember being in Warsaw, and we gave a concert in Warsaw, and we also did a tour of the Chopin Museum, and of course we got to see Chopin's piano, which was like, wow, that's really cool. And it reminded me so much of Polish history, and I've gotten back into learning more about Polish history recently, and during the time Chopin lived, Poland didn't exist. It had been taken away because after the Napoleonic Wars and the Congress of Vienna in 1815, this is your history lesson, the Congress of Vienna in 1815 redrew the map of Europe, and basically what happened was Russia, Prussia, and the Austria-Habsburg Empire divvied up Poland, and it did not exist. And that's one of the reasons why Chopin ended up in Paris and in exile with many thousands and thousands of Poles. So the tragic history of Poland actually goes on well beyond the horrors that that country experienced during World War II. They have been a country that has existed, has not existed, has been taken over. I called it when I taught world history that Poland is the great hallway of Central Europe because the people march over there on their way to Russia and the Russians come back on their way back towards Germany and Western Europe. And so I remember being so impacted by how much those people loved Chopin. And there's a huge statue of Chopin in the largest park in Warsaw. And every Sunday to this day, on Sunday afternoons during the summer at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoons, they give Chopin concerts, and some of the most renowned pianists in the world come and give these free concerts in this park in Warsaw. The other thing that I've recently discovered that is really cool is when you're walking up one of the royal ways in Warsaw towards the castle, there are benches along the way, and you can press a button and Chopin's music will play. They clearly love their Chopin, as they should. And so I wanted to do something by Chopin, but Chopin is incredibly difficult. He is incredibly complex in his writings. And what you'll find is, Bach had lots of notes, but everything is really close together, and people said you couldn't see Bach's hands move when he was playing because it was going so fast, right? But with Chopin, you're using the entire keyboard, and you're doing stretches. Like I'll be doing stretches of an octave between my thumb and middle finger to keep it a legato, to keep that smooth transition going as we move from one chord to the next. And you're using the entire keyboard, as you'll notice as well. So unlike the classical period, is sort of the bridge to this romantic. So Brahms is a romantic composer, Rachmaninoff and Tchaikovsky, those are all romantic composers. But I wanted to do Chopin, and I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? So I Googled easiest Chopin pieces. And so you're going to hear two of them. and then one, these are two very, very famous pieces of Chopin. The first one, the Prelude, he was so inspired by Bach that he was one of the first composers since Bach to write a series of preludes in every key. So there's 24 preludes for each of the 24 major and minor keys, and he was the first person since Bach to do that. Or if not the first, one of the most meaningful. He was clearly inspired by Bach. Unlike Bach, he didn't write a fugue for every prelude afterwards. But the first prelude is if we have any Fanilows out in the crowd, this is the one when I say to David, I'm going to do the Barry Manilow Chopin prelude. It's not the Chopin Barry Manilow prelude, but if you're of a certain age like me, when Barry Manilow was very popular, this prelude he took and lifted it and put it into the music, and I can't think of the song now. Da, 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 da. Come, come, come into my life. Could this be the magic at last? Baby, I want you now. Now. Okay, so Chopin did not say, baby, I want you now. Okay, I can tell you that. But what's very interesting about the Chopin prelude in C minor, it obviously has a very dark sound to it, but it also has a bit of hopeful overtones, and that's why I told you a bit about the history of Poland, because you need to put Chopin's music in the context of what Poland was like at that time. He was living in exile from a country that he loved and a place that he loved. And so when you hear some of these chords, some of them sound very hopeful to me, and then it's followed up by something that sounds quite tragic. And I hope that comes through. And actually, it's only 13 bars long, and so it's fairly short. And you'll see all 12 of the 13 bars, I'll have this same type of melody. Da 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 da, and all the bars have that repetitive theme to it. And then when you get to the fifth measure, in the left hand, you're blasting out octaves in the left hand, but then in the second 4 bars, you're doing chromatically by octaves, and you're supposed to keep them legato, which means you're supposed to keep your hands connected together. And how you're moving down the keyboard and keeping your hands connected is impossible, but I'll do my best. So you're going like this. So you can hear that as that goes downward, that just has sort of like this ominous overtone to it, and you can just feel like you're being going down with the music. And again, so that's the prelude in C minor. And after that, I'm going to play one that I hope comes out okay, because it's one that I've taught myself here in the last 3 months, because I didn't want to do only dark Chopin. I wanted to do something fun-ish Chopin, and so I'm doing the prelude number 1 in C major. And it, to me, sounds like waves. It sounds like waves coming over and over and over, and it builds and it builds and it builds, and then it comes back and it builds and it builds, and it's really short. It's only like 28 bars long, but it packs a lot of punch in those few lines. And the rhythm is slightly off. In fact, the tempo given for it is agitato, so agitated. So he clearly wants you to feel that agitation of the music. And then finally, the third one I'm going to do is one that is very famous. And actually, the first and the third one, if I make a mistake, you'll know it, because you know these pieces really well. So if I hit a clunker, I'm sorry. But what's interesting about the fourth prelude in C minor, E minor, I'm sorry, it's in E minor, is that the right hand just plays a single note. The melody is just one note. And meantime, in your left hand, you're playing 3 notes all the time. And the single note is supposed to sound louder than the 3 notes that you're playing in the chord in the left hand. So one of the things you have to do, there's a sweet spot in the piano keys. When you press down on the first time, you don't let the key up all the way, and you just have to kind of let it gradually repeat, and then you're going to switch. And again, you're supposed to keep this all connected, and it's virtually impossible to do. But it's one of the pieces that it's very easy to learn. It's not difficult, but it is extremely difficult to play well, because it's very complex. It's in its simplicity, it's complex. And what you can hear is, this is often called the suffocation prelude, or to me, it sounds like someone is dying. And the first half of the piece, about halfway through, you'll hear this. So it's like he's almost gone, but he has that one little, he's coming back a little bit. But then towards the end, it gets loud. And then it just fades away. And then it hits one of the most haunting chords in all the repertoire. And let me get that for you right here. It's this chord. And then there's a fermata after it of a hold with silence. And so to me, this symbolizes whoever this person is has now passed. And then there's 3 chords that come after that. So to finish the piece. And so I find it deeply meaningful, a meaningful work. So again, here are the 3 Chopin preludes. C minor, the Barry Manilow one. C major, the rollicking waves, agitated, and the third one, the suffocation. I can say the third one meant a lot to Chopin because he had it played at his funeral. And one other thing I forgot to mention is when Chopin died in 1850, he had made arrangements with his doctor. They removed his heart before he was buried. He's buried in Paris, but they removed his heart. His sister was visiting from Warsaw, and the doctor put his heart in a jar, and she took it back to Warsaw, and his heart is buried in the Church of the Holy Cross in Warsaw. And so that is a pilgrimage point for fans of Frédéric Chopin to this day. So you can be thinking about all those things as you hear this deeply meaningful music from Chopin that encompasses the entire keyboard. Enjoy. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed those pieces even a tenth as much as I love them. I just think they're so fabulous to listen to, and they're fun to play as well. I noticed that there are several people out in the audience who are not from Rome. So if you are not from Rome, would you mind standing so you can be recognized for making a trek to come here for this recital this afternoon? The majority of those people are from Atlanta. However, there's one special friend of mine. I have many special friends, but someone came all the way from Greenville, South Carolina, but also has a home in Roanoke, Virginia. And so it's very meaningful for you to be here. And it's meaningful for all of you to be here, but for those people that took an extra special effort, thank you so much for being here. It means more than you realize. I realized this was an exciting date that I picked, even though I had no idea what day today was. I had no idea it was Pentecost today. And so in the Episcopal Church, anyway, we have hangings, as you can see at the lectern and on the altar, and so those change colors, and on Pentecost they are red, as you can see. And when I grew up in the Episcopal Church in Rapid City, South Dakota, the red hangings were always my favorites, and they get short shift because they're only on Palm Sunday, Pentecost, and maybe an isolated day here and there. They're very rarely used, but when they are used, it's a special occasion. And so I thought, well, this is indeed a special occasion. And so I was excited to know that the red hangings would be here because it reminds me of my childhood. And my first piano teacher, Joyce Kurtz, who is still around with us, and I sent her a copy of the program as well, and so I've dedicated the program to her as well. This is also, there's also a lot of special friends of mine here today as well, because many of you know that I've had personal struggles in the last few years, and today is a special day. It is my 950th day in recovery. And so I thought to myself, this is indeed a special day on many levels. So we're going to end with a contemporary piece, and so for those of you that don't like contemporary music, I'm sorry. But I'm sorry, not sorry, because I heard this when I was a sophomore in college, and someone played it at their recital, and I was like, what is this piece? I love this piece. And so this is Danzas Argentinas by Alberto Ginastera, who, as you may imagine by guessing by the title, that he is an Argentinian composer. This was written in 1937. And so, as you may guess from the title, they're Argentinian folk dances. And so the first dance is called Danza del Viejo Boyero, which is the dance of the old cowpoke. So what you will hear in the dance of the old cowpoke is the actual folk melody is in the right hand, and the left hand's doing something else. And it will sound odd to you. You will think, this is weird. Something is weird about this piece, the way it's written. And it's written because, and it is weird, all right? It's weird. But the reason it's weird is the left hand is playing all black keys, and the right hand is playing all white keys. And so you've got that dissonant sound right from that until you'll hear a very loud series of chords, which will tell you that the left hand and the right hand are all playing white keys. You will hear that. You will hear the difference. And then what's also interesting is one landmark of Ginastera's music is he likes to use guitar chords. And so Argentinian music, the emphasis on the guitar and the tango and all of those kinds of things. He will often use the notes that are used when you're tuning a guitar. So near the end of the first movement, you'll hear this series of notes. And so that's the same tones that you hear when you're tuning the guitar. So be listening for that. The second movement was not my favorite when I first played this, but now it is by far my favorite of the three. And this is the Danza della Mossa Donosa, which is the dance of the graceful girl. And it sounds just a little bit, every time you think, oh, this sounds really normal, then a dissonant sound will come in. But it doesn't jar you, but yet it's not just all melodic. So if you hear what you think are wrong notes, they're probably correct, thankfully. But what you'll see is the graceful girl starts dancing with that main theme that you hear at the beginning, and the dancing gets more flourishes and louder, and I can just visualize this woman dancing and her skirt just flying around is what I envision every time I play it. And then when I get to the third page of this one, the last page of it, the main theme comes back. However, this time it's not playing it as a single note. It's playing it in thirds. So instead of playing it the first time like this, at the end it's going to be. So it's in thirds. And my piano teacher, Dr. Schmidt, wrote above that, at that section, she wrote, "Just a memory." And so when I'm interpreting that today, I'm interpreting that as when you are remembering somebody, it's not always clear. You know, I think there's maybe, you get the general idea, you got the melody, but it's maybe she wasn't everything you thought she was. Maybe she was a little more than that. And then the very last chord keeps the mystery going at the end. You're just still not really sure about the graceful girl. So that's the second movement. The third movement is Danza del Gaucho Matriero, which is the dance of the cattling, rustling cowboy. And it is loud. In fact, the marking at the top says, furiosamente ritmico e energetico. So furious, rhythmic, and energetic. And then when you go on, it says things like, let me see. What does it say here? It says violente, violent. And then it will say things like always triple F. So very, very loud, louder than fortissimo. And then at the end, the last chords, it says salvaggio, savagely. So I'll just let you figure that out as you listen to it. But that is going to be the last work, and I don't have any encore, but I would love to invite each of you to join me in Daniel Hall for a reception afterwards. So it'd be great to chat with many of you. And to get to Daniel Hall, again, you'll just go through the doorway here and just keep going straight ahead. There's 3 or 4 steps up, and it'll be on your right. And I'd love to see you. And again, if you would like to make a contribution donation for the Episcopal Youth Community, the EYC mission trip to Italy on the St. Francis of Assisi pilgrimage next, the box is up there. So again, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoy the Ginastera. This is the one where I thought, if I can resurrect this one I played at my senior recital 36 years ago. And when I played it the first time a few months ago, I was like, oh, I'll never be able to do this. And I may not be able to do it justice today, but I'm going to do my best. And so thank you each from the bottom of my heart for coming today, and thank you to the staff and Father David and Father John here at St. Peter's for your encouragement. Wanda and Fred from the music department have been with me every step and encouraging me and saying, I think you should do this. And I told Wanda, the organist, I said, I think I want to do a recital. And she said, and I told her what I was wanting to play, and she said, oh, you're talking about a real recital. and I was like, well, real or not, or imagined, I just thank you for coming on a Sunday afternoon when we all have a zillion other things we could be doing. It means very much for me to be able to share my love of music and my love of history and my love of languages to each and every one of you here today, because it's really been, this has been fun, and it showed me that even if you say, I haven't done this for 30 years, I can't do this, yes, you can. You can do it. It may not be as pretty as it was back then, and I didn't memorize everything, and that I did not want to pressure myself to memorize everything. Although I've got, most of it is in my head, but I didn't want to do that to myself. Otherwise, we would not have had this recital for 2 more years, and I didn't want to do that. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoy the Danzas Argentinas by Alberto Ginastera.